So during intros, I mentioned to you guys, I'm Jamie Stento. I'm the Business Applications Technical Architect here at the Philadelphia MTC. For those of you that don't know, MTC stands for Microsoft Technology Center. And one of the things that we do here is sit down on a daily basis with customers and look at ways that we can use Microsoft technologies to solve business problems. And that's really kind of the goal of my existence here. It's being able to sit down and understand strategically what customers are trying to do, the problems that they're trying to solve for, and then not just from a Dynamics or just a Power Platform perspective, but all up, how do we construct a solution to solve those business problems? That's a lot of what we do from the MTCs. We have locations all around the world. We have 15 locations in North America. But like I said, we bring customers in here. We do a lot of these kind of like today, hybrid engagements, because you never know when somebody's going to wake up not feeling well, right? So get some people remote, some people here in the room, and just try to attack some of those problems. We'll take from a strategic perspective, get into the architecture from an architectural design for problem solving, and then also get hands-on with customers and kind of work through how we can build out some of these solutions so we get people with hands-on keyboards. So one of the things that Heidi asked me about was, hey, can you come and talk at the UG meeting about the new stuff that's coming out? And I was like, wow, all right, well, that's kind of a few things. If you look at, if you even just do a search for release plan, 2023 Wave 1 release plan, those types of things, you'll find the Power Platform and the Dynamics 365 release plan, and probably, you know, Heidi can pop these links in. And if you guys aren't already familiar with that, there's the online documentation around what's coming in the upcoming release. You can kind of drill in to specific areas of Power Platform, like Power Virtual Agents or AI Builder, so on and so forth. On the Dynamics release plans, you can dig into marketing or sales, or right. So everything's kind of broken out by I'll say module or area. But there's a ton of ground to cover when we talk about what's coming in the latest release. So I kind of said, well, I'm not really going to try to do that. Another tool that we brought out recently, I'd say less than a year ago, is this release planner that, I don't know, for me, I guess I'm so used to the release notes, I just go to the release notes, but I know a lot of folks like using this release planner to do a couple of things. One is to be able to search for particular items that are coming down the pipe, or even be able to search for keywords and see what comes up in the release planner. This is just sort of a different way of presenting those same release notes. Another thing that people like to do with this tool is sort of favorite some of those items, because as you know, when we have a release wave, that spans multiple months, right? So from April through the end of September, we're going to be releasing capabilities that are part of the current release wave that's starting up. And so some things are going to be slated for release in July or August or whatever. And so people will favorite some of those things, those capabilities that they're really interested in, and then come back and check on it later and see what the latest updates are. So those are some of the things you can do out of the release planner tool. Again, another link that will pop either into the chat, or we'll include that with Heidi's information once we wrap up today. There was a little bit of discussion around conferences. One of the things that's coming up, and I highly recommend, go to build.microsoft.com, register for Build. It's going to be held in person in Seattle this year, which is really cool. We're starting to get back to more in-person conferences, but because we learned so much about virtual conferences and being able to do these things at massive scale, we have that capability as well. So I do encourage you to check out Microsoft Build, because that's coming up pretty soon. For me, that's one of the, what's the word that I want? Soonest conferences that are getting ready to kick off. That's coming in late May. So So again, getting back to, Heidi said, hey, can you talk about some of the new stuff that's coming out in the latest release? And I was like, man, what should we touch on? And then last week or 2 weeks ago, there was this, massive announcement around AI capabilities at Viva Sales and Copilot. And some of the things had been talked about before, like Viva Sales in terms of a name wasn't necessarily new because we have talked about that a little bit in the past, but nobody really, I think, grasped what it was really all about. So all of this stuff kind of landed in announcements about 2 weeks ago. And so, of course, we're getting lots of questions. And even today, everybody was like, yeah, I want to know about some of the new AI stuff. So I figured, okay, let's pull together some information around these AI capabilities that are being baked into the platform and start to talk about what it is that's available, when it's going to be available, and all that good stuff. And I think what that'll do is give us a really good transition into the demonstration that Jocelyn is going to go through as well. So I think we'll be able to kind of string this along in a logical progression today. So I wanted to start off talking a little bit about Viva Sales. And the concept behind Viva Sales, I think, is twofold. Part of it is we want to have a way to incorporate CRM capabilities into the productivity tools that our sellers use on a daily basis. So when we think about relationship sellers, they live in Outlook, right? And so having to bounce back and forth between Outlook and their CRM system becomes burdensome. We end up with that swivel chair scenario. And this is one of the things we've been trying to address with Power Platform for a long, long time. And so the question becomes, how do we start to bake some of that capability into the tools that are directly in the hands of our end users as they execute business process on a regular basis? And that's kind of the concept behind Viva Sales. How do we bring that together? Now, you heard me mention just sort of generically their CRM system, because one of the things that we did with Viva Sales is we said, not all of our end users, not all of our O365 users are Dynamics users. Some of them are Salesforce users. So with Viva Sales, you do need to have either Dynamics or Salesforce, but when you're setting up Viva Sales, you can connect to either one. And it's a really important message because if you think about the way we bring Power Platform to the table, we're doing it in a way with connectors that allows us to say, look, as a Microsoft person, I would love it if you bought Dynamics. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is help our customers and meet them where they are. So if you have Salesforce, I just had an engagement with a customer all day Wednesday, and we were talking about exactly this because they're a Salesforce customer. They're evaluating Dynamics. So I would love to see them come over to Dynamics, and it makes a lot of sense because of all the integration from a platform perspective. But you can't just flip a switch and all of a sudden transition, right? So how do we deal with some of the pain points that we have today? And how do we give our end users something valuable that helps them as we start to make changes, as we start to transition to a different platform? So Viva Sales is one of the things that enables us to do that. And I'm just realizing I didn't open up Viva Sales. So the place that Viva Sales shows up, and we can pin this right in Outlook, is this is a scenario where I have an email here from a customer, and as a seller, we've been talking about an opportunity for the purchase of several coffee machines. So of course, we got out of the bike business and now we're in the coffee machine business these days, right? So the customer is looking for a proposal based on the opportunity that we've been talking to them about. And so they send an email and say, hey, I would like to get a proposal. One of the things that Viva Sales enables us to do is not just use OpenAI to generate an email response, but it's also going to pull back information from my CRM system because it knows, if I come over here to the Dynamics side of this, it knows my contact record, okay? And it also knows that I have a a conversation history in Outlook with this particular customer. So it's Viva Sales is pulling some of my Outlook history into an easy to navigate, easy to find location in this Viva Sales pane. I can also jump over to the dynamic side and get more information about my contact record and the information that is stored in Dynamics. If I wanted to pop open that contact record directly from Dynamics, I can do that. I have a list of and some details on the various opportunities that I currently have going on with this customer. We have 3 different opportunities, and I'm getting some of the details here on this pane. I can also get some details around the account that this customer is associated with. So why is this important? Because as an end user, I don't have to jump over to my CRM system to start getting this information, right? I don't have to change context. I don't have to lose my train of thought. I can stay right in Outlook and access all of this information that's coming from my CRM system. I can store my email. I can track this email in Dynamics like we used to do with the Dynamics add-in, right? So we want to generate an email for this customer. I don't know about you guys, but one of the things that happens to me is when I'm going to send an email that is, somewhat formal, I want it to sound professional. I'm going to sit down and I really have to think about this for a second. And usually the longest point of creating that email is at the very beginning because I'm trying to find a starting spot, right? Like that's what happens to me. One of the things I like about Viva Sales is I can say, okay, in our scenario here, the customer is asking for a proposal for this sales opportunity that we had been working on. So I can just click on make a proposal. And what Viva Sales is going to do is it's going to generate it's going to generate an email for me. One of the things that it's doing is based on my email history with this customer, it's able to generate that email sort of in my voice. And I tend to use short sentences and, I'm just not that smart of an individual. And so it's going to generate an email using my voice. And I can tell it to try again, right? We can try to do a bunch of different things here. But one of the cool things is it's pulling information in directly from CRM. So it's filling in some of the gaps. It's generating that email that says, hey, yeah, here's the total price from that opportunity. When I did this the first time, when I was learning how all of this works and playing around with how this comes together, it actually pulled the wrong opportunity from that list of 3 opportunities. So one of the things I was able to do was go down to the bottom here and just say, hey, change the opportunity that I'm associated with. So then it'll refresh the data in the email based on the new opportunity that I selected. So it's not just the AI saying, hey, let me generate this email, pull in information from CRM that I think is relevant. It's actually able to allow us to make changes to it and go connect back to CRM. And I don't have to do a whole lot of work to do that. Now, a lot of times what happens for me, the reason this is really important is because it gives me the starting point for that email message. And now all I really need to do is read through that and say, okay, I'm going to tweak this. I'm going to change a word here. And oh, by the way, there was another point that I wanted to make sure I respond to this customer with. I can just add that in. I don't have to start from the beginning and lose time just starting to get this email message together and then have to bounce over to my CRM system and get some of the data I need, so on and so forth. So this becomes very, very powerful. In the scenario that I brought up here, you'll see down at the bottom here, it just says copy text. So what I can do is copy that text. I can paste it into an email. Another scenario that we'll see is if I start a reply, I'll see Viva Sales up here on the toolbar for my reply. And this will give me essentially the same type of thing, right? I can say make a proposal. It'll come back with that email. And now what it's going to do is say, hey, copy to email. So it's going to take that text and drive it directly into my email reply. One of the things I want to do here is say, well, the AI came back and it's proposing a meeting time. I don't really want to go down that road yet. I want to allow the customer to review the proposal first before we set up a meeting. So I'm going to say reply without meeting date.
I was playing this and I asked it to add a joke about cats. It doesn't support jokes yet,
Yeah, not so much.
just so you know.
So like ChatGPT will,
Yeah.
right? But
It
some
did
of those
too.
things,
Yeah.
some of those things there are things that we're blocking
Yeah,
from
jokes.
an AI perspective or from a chat perspective, I should say from a GPT perspective.
Yeah.
So that we're not trying, we're trying to eliminate bias, non-inclusive language, a lot of those types of things. There's a lot that's going to change over the next few years because this is so new, and a lot of people are concerned about some of these, the just responsibility in general, right? And so there's a lot that's going to change here. Some of what we're doing might be a little bit too restrictive. So how do we correct, right? There's going to be a lot that changes. But so, I told it reply without the meeting date. It was able to adjust that email message, give me back the results that I wanted. I can pop that into a reply back to this customer. Another scenario is if we go through that proposal and the customer says, hey, yeah, I know we have a ship date and it's 4 weeks out. Is there any way we can shorten that time? Now, I'm not responsible for delivery. So I might need to go talk with someone else in the organization about, hey, can we shorten the delivery time on this scenario? So that's a case where I can go over to Teams, and I already did this, but I'll show you where it comes from. I can send a message to my colleague Stan and say, hey, any chance that we can improve on the delivery time? When I'm sending a reply, one of the things that we'll notice down at the bottom here on my toolbar is Viva Sales is baked into Teams as well. So Viva Sales, again, is going to pop up anything that I'm currently associated with, contacts, accounts, my opportunities. This is where I can grab that opportunity. And it's, again, going to grab the details out of my CRM system and be able to include that in the chat message to someone else on my team. So again, I don't have to bounce around and pull information and put together a giant message and waste a lot of time on that. So once I get that answer, I can come over back into Viva Sales to reply to my customer here. And in this case, I might just say, describe the email. And I'm going to say reply. We can accommodate time frame, but with only 5 units. And I don't spell correctly, and that's okay. The AI understand what I meant.
You've got a question from Swati if you'd like to take questions.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Can I integrate this with my existing CRMs?
Yes, so Viva Sales will connect to Dynamics or Salesforce. You need to have one or the other. And I'll also say from an end user perspective, let me jump out here. You'll notice here I'm signed into a specific Dynamics 365 environment. In our tenant for the MTC, we have a number of environments that have different versions of Dynamics envisioned in there. As an end user, I can sign into the Dynamics instance that I want to connect to. So what does that mean? I've worked with some organizations where they have certain people working in different instances of Dynamics for whatever reason. They're working in different parts of the company. For example, there's a financial services company that I worked with where they not only do back-end fund accounting, mutual fund accounting, that's a part of the service that they provide, but they also manage and sell their own mutual funds. So from a legal perspective, those businesses need to be kept separate, right? So they have their own Dynamics instances.
You've got a few more questions. Hot topic. So
Oh,
Swanky,
absolutely.
sorry,
Yeah.
your clients using HubSpot can't use this.
That would be correct.
Chad is wondering if it connects to Business Central, and he probably won't like the answer to that either.
It does not connect to Business Central.
And Chad, I'm not quite sure what the other one you're asking is, F and SCM.
F&O,
Let's have
I think Microsoft changes the name every couple of months now. Finance and
Gotcha.
Yeah, it will connect to Dynamics CRM. It will connect to Salesforce. It does not connect to F&O or Business Central or
Okay.
ERP systems.
Thanks.
At least not yet. I'm not going to say that won't come in the future. But currently that's the case. And the big reason for that is right now we're trying to address the seller experience. And when we talk about relationship sellers, they're doing a lot of their work out of Outlook. And so you're really connecting to a sales system as opposed to an ERP system.
That makes sense, especially if it's connected to CRM. Just wanted to see if there's a workaround.
You could potentially drive some of your ERP data to Dynamics.
You could also do another option would be Power Apps, because it wouldn't be Viva Sales, but you could use
Right.
the Dynamics app for Outlook if you're using Power Apps. You don't have to be a Dynamics user.
Got it. Cool. Thank you.
Just go to Dynamics CRM.
Everybody's doing it.
It's so easy to flip the switch.
Yeah, so any other questions on that? I mean, right now, what Viva Sales is a tool to help us quickly generate those responses to emails. That's where our sales folks live, especially our relationship sellers. And the ability to pull some of that data from CRM is really, really important. And helps from a productivity perspective. Another place where Viva Sales shows up is when I create a meeting. I actually had my wife do this so that we could record the call and create a transcript. When I create a meeting in Outlook and I've invited a customer to that meeting, Viva Sales will show up there as well. So when I look at my calendar in Teams, because it provisioned a Teams meeting for me, I'll see this Viva Sales tab. Oops, stop moving around. I'll see this Viva Sales tab in the Teams meeting. So this is where I can do a couple of things. One, I can configure some settings around Viva Sales, the things that I want to be able to do with regards to this particular meeting. But then when we're having the call and we record the call, so we're recording and we're capturing the transcript, Viva Sales is going to go through and be able to organize the information from that transcript and provide us some specific notes.
I should have done that for this call. I'm recording it and I have Viva Sales.
There you go.
Dang. I guess we can't start it retroactively, can we?
You probably could just start the transcription and you could later on, you could see what happens, right? But so because I set up this meeting with a particular customer, now I recorded it, we have the transcript. Not only do we have the full transcript, this is the same kind of capability that we have in customer service with Omnichannel, being able to record customer service calls, right? And get some of those call analytics back. It's going to pull out specific follow-ups, things that were discussed in the conversation that someone needs to follow up on. So for this particular case, it was, hey, we want to move forward with this proposal. Okay, the call's still good. This went down for a second and I thought we lost the call. So in this case, we talked about we're going to deliver some of these coffee machines. The customer was asking about the size, the dimensions of the packaging, and from a loading dock perspective, that sort of thing. I didn't know that. So in the call, I said, I'll have to get the dimensions and I'll get back to you on that. That's an action item. So the call analytics is able to pull out those action items for us, be able to give us, that's good to know.
Welcome.
the ability to pull out certain keywords that are used, and those are things that are configurable around your products, competitors, those types of things. You can pull those keywords out.
I could participate. It's fine.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's also going to call out, give us a little bit of coaching background around, how much I was talking as a seller versus allowing the customer to talk and express their ideas, right? So some of that in detail is being captured with the call analytics. One of the things that's kind of funny in this case is in this script that I gave my wife, she was saying how, she was on vacation, but everybody got sick. And so the vacation wasn't very good and all, but she's got such a bubbly personality. It never registered as a negative symptom. So there's sentiment analysis going on in here, but it's really interesting the way that it picks up the tone of voice, even though the words that are being used aren't necessarily positive, right? So why is that important? Well, part of it is around, from a coaching perspective, the ability to capture those follow-ups, the things that I still need to do as a seller. But then also, when I come back into Outlook and I want to send an email to my customer, let me just reply to this. Here, I'll just say, summarize a sales meeting. This is another one that I think was kind of interesting, and I'll see if it updates at all here. Yeah, it didn't do it. So it created an email summarizing the meeting. It's doing the summarization out of the transcript. But what's kind of interesting is it pulled up it's including the wrong opportunity. Even though the correct opportunity was used in the meeting name, the email response pulled in the wrong opportunity. And right now, I don't have the ability to go and change that. So even though it said summary of discuss Excel proposal, it pulled the wrong opportunity into my message. So these are some of the things that are being worked on by engineering that are going to be sort of corrected as we start to roll this stuff out over the next month or so. But I thought it was kind of interesting the way it pulled that information together. It knows the account information and starts to pull that into our email. And it pulls back some of the highlights, some of those notes that came out of the discussion. The customer asked, are the capsules from the coffee machine recyclable? And I was able to respond and say, yes, they're recyclable. You send them to us. We'll make sure they don't go into a landfill, right? Those types of things. It's able to pull those things out and just summarize that email, which saves me a lot of time as a seller. And again, I can copy that text and create a new email, or I could have started a new email and just pasted this right into the email message. So that's a lot of stuff about Viva Sales. Thoughts, questions? I don't know if there's anything else in the chat.
Nothing in the chat. I really like Viva Sales. I find it really, really cool. But just to note to any of you who are using Dynamics, you need a premium or enterprise license to use this, or an extra $40 per user per month.
How much?
$40 per user per month. So you shouldn't stay sales professional. $30 more, you should upgrade to professional and get a slew of other cool things.
It's really a key point. A lot of the customers that I'm dealing with are already at an enterprise level, so the topic doesn't really come up.
Mm-hmm.
But you make a really good point. When we think about what the cost difference is to make that jump to the enterprise level, then you have to say, well, what am I getting for that, right? And this is one of those. I know it's new, but this is one of those really key pieces where we say, oh, from a productivity perspective, from the standpoint of this customer that I met with Wednesday. One of the things that they're complaining about is their folks don't use Salesforce. They're not inputting the information because the implementation isn't actually helping the end user. They're actually tracking their own data in Excel. I'm like, oh, yeah, right? So when you start to create some of these productivity capabilities for the end user, you're giving them something. That's where that cost differential becomes I don't want to say a non-issue, but you're seeing a lot more value. So that was Viva Sales. Another topic that came up was this topic of Copilot. So one thing I'll say is when we talk about Viva Sales, something that a phrase that you probably have heard recently is Viva Sales Copilot. And we're sort of blending the two of these things together, right? So Viva Sales, under the covers, when we're connecting to Dynamics and we're doing a lot of these things in Outlook, it's using a lot of the Copilot capabilities that you may have heard of and seen some videos about. I was able recently to get my hands on a version of Copilot to get it deployed to one of our internal Dynamics instances. I got engineering to relent and give us some of this so that we could at least play with it and talk about it, because everybody has questions about this. But it's very much the same type of scenario. If this is a case where I'm in the customer service workspace app, and so if I'm a customer service rep and I get an email question from a customer, the customer wants to know, I would like to clean the water tank on my coffee machine, so how do I do that? We can go into our Copilot here and say, resolve the customer's problem. Now, the other day, this was not working at all. Hopefully, we're still working today. I tested it this morning, and I did get, yay, another one. So what this will do is generate an email response resolving the customer's problem. What it's doing is looking at the customer's email, basically saying, well, what was the problem? And then it's taking that information and going back to the knowledge base and finding data from relevant knowledge base articles. Now, what it was doing, yeah, this is interesting. So what it's going to do is it's sort of summarizing the information that came from the knowledge base article. To the best of my knowledge, the knowledge base article, the way that we have them written here is kind of a stepwise, step 1, step 2, step 3 type of scenario. And that's on Wednesday. That's how the AI was generating the email. It's basically taking the contents from the knowledge base article and bringing it back into the email. Now what it's doing is taking all that stepwise information and sort of summarizing it into paragraph form. Not sure if I like that, because if I want to know a procedure for how to do something, I like going step 1, step 2, step 3. So even today, it's acting a little bit differently than it did on Wednesday when I went through this same scenario. So it's kind of interesting the way that things are changing. But again, we can take this, we can copy it to an email, we can send this back to the customer. One of the questions that I got previously was, will it include a link to the knowledge base article? So right now, the AI side of this is not doing that. I think that's something that we'll do in the future. Because one of the things that we used to do from a customer, or we still do from a customer service perspective, is the customer service rep might go and look up a knowledge base article, and maybe they're responding to an email, or they have the customer on the phone and they're giving them the details from that knowledge base article. But then they're also always able to send a link to that same knowledge base article over to the customer. The AI is not including that right now, but I think that's something that'll come down the pipe. But what it's doing is it is going to our knowledge base based on the question, the problem that the customer described in their email, and it's pulling back relevant information to resolve that problem out of the knowledge base, which again is a lot better, I think, than having to go search through the knowledge base, some of the things that we've had from a customer service perspective for a while. We're taking some steps out of the, away from the user, the end user. So right now, that's all I have with Copilot, but the point behind this is to use the AI capabilities, the open AI capabilities that are part of the Microsoft platform, where we're able to use text to generate responses for customers. When we look at AI in general and the place that AI shows up in Power Platform, there's a number of places where we've had this in Power Apps and Power Automate for a while. So when I'm in the Maker portal, I don't know if you guys have played with this before, but the ability to take an image and give it to Power Apps and say, hey, build me an app from this image. One of the things that's really important about this, and I've done this with a few customers, is people have forms. So I can take a PDF form, throw it at Power Apps and say, build me an app. And you have business users that have ideas for what they want the app to look like. They don't necessarily want to have to learn Power Apps to start building out a screen and that sort of thing. They don't want to take that time, but they'll draw it on the whiteboard, right? So if we can take an image of that, throw it at Power Platform, tell it to build an app for me, what it's doing is using AI to say, okay, I'm going to draw bounding boxes around everything that I see in this image. And then I'm going to make some assumptions around what I think is a label, a text field, a drop-down box, a checkbox, so on and so forth. And I'm going to start to draw out what I think the screen is going to look like. And then when that comes up, you can make adjustments. Maybe a field that looked like a drop-down, I really wanted that to be a text box, right? So I can just make that adjustment and I can tell Power Apps to build that app for me. So it'll formulate a couple of screens. It'll even ask me if I want to create a Dataverse table under the covers, and it'll generate the table for me as well. Right. So some of that kind of AI capability has been here for a while. One of the things that's coming down the pipe, I was not able to get this turned on yet, is much like what you can do in Power Automate, where if I want to create a flow, describe it to design it, right? So I can just sort of describe a flow and have Power Automate start to bring that together with the right connectors and so on and so forth. Power Apps is going to have the same type of thing. And this is part of what's going to be rolling out in this release wave. I can go to Power Apps and say, I want an app for employees checking out equipment like walkie-talkies and I don't know what else, right? Power Apps can take that and start to build the app for me, right? So we're starting to get away from not just the low-code tools and making it easier for non-developers to create these applications and these automated processes. We're making it even easier for non-developers to just describe what it is that they want to build and let the tool help them get that accomplished. One of the reasons that's extremely important is because from a development perspective, right, I grew up as a coder. I've been doing this for 100 years, and I go all the way back to assembler code days. We've always, IT has missed the mark building business applications because we don't really understand the business process, and we miss it right at the requirements stage. And it's been that way forever. When we make it easier for business users to create or describe what it is they're trying to do, it allows us to be able to take that starting point and then go run with it. Now we're starting to eliminate some of that disconnect. The other thing it allows us to do is, again, from an IT perspective and a governance perspective, we're able to get business users away from the shadow IT things like SharePoint lists and Excel, things that we can't manage and monitor. If we can get them gravitating toward more of these tools where we can monitor what people are doing, we can manage what people are building, where it lives, what kind of data they're storing, who that data is being shared with, so on and so forth. Now it makes our lives a lot easier from an IT perspective. Another place where AI shows up in Power Apps already is this concept of ideas. So on this screen, I don't know if this is too small. Let me make this a little bit bigger. I have a gallery on this screen, but there's a little light bulb icon that pops up here. And Power Apps will do that every once in a while to pop open this pane called ideas. Because it knows people want to do things with the gallery, but we don't always know the formulas and the things that we want to be able to do. So Power Apps is trying to help me out as an end user to be able to say, hey, depending on what it is that you're trying to do, here's the actual Power FX formula that you would need to do that. So again, as a non-developer, I don't have to go trying to sort through documentation or whatever. I can get this concept of ideas directly in the tool. So there's a lot of these AI capabilities that have been baked into the tools for a while, and they're actually using GPT technology under the covers, using natural language to describe, allow the user to describe what it is that they want to do, and then come back with PowerFX or whatever type of formula you need to bring back.
Jamie, sorry to interrupt. Jocelyn has to leave at 11. She just let me know. Is there any way we can pop her into one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Jump in.
Awesome.
I was
Thank
going to
you.
just,
Sorry about that.
I was just about to jump into the OpenAI capability that's baked into AI Builder. So, which was really going to be my transition to you anyway, Jocelyn. So go for it.
It's no worries. Super sorry to interrupt, but the invite on my end went until I guess 8 Pacific time. So then somebody booked me, of course.
Oh, no worries.
Actually, I think that at the conclusion of my demo would actually be a great handoff back into the built-in AI Builder capabilities.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to skip through some slides. Bear with me as I do that when I get going. Do you mind if I take over sharing screen?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. Can everybody see my screen?
We'll come back to we can, yeah. Narayan, we'll come back to your question and comment after this.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Just an intro. I know we talked about my favorite ice cream and how I like to microwave ice cream, but I am Jocelyn. I am the product manager for Power Platform Connectors. I was originally from the East Coast, born and raised in Brooklyn and New Jersey. I graduated from UW Seattle with actually a bachelor's in mechanical engineering. So Narayan, you were talking about not being a typical techie. Neither am I. I also used to be a PM on the Power Automate Cloud Flows specific team as part of the Maker experience. So some Power Automate features that you might be aware of that I've had my hand in includes the delay button, the undo button, as well as the original integration into PPAC back when we were called UI Flows a couple of years ago. We can skip the agenda because we're going to skip through things. And I just want to set the stage of what exactly connectors are. If we go into a more technical definition, they are a wrapper or proxy around a REST API that's going to go and transfer data from external data sources into Power Platform. In more simple and plain terms, they are a highway that allows you to bring services from outside of Microsoft or inside of Microsoft, but just outside of Power Platform itself into specifically Power Automate, Power Apps, and Azure Logic Apps. While we primarily support Power Automate, Power Apps, and Azure Logic Apps, we also have a growing group of integrations across other products across Microsoft, including Dataverse, Viva Sales, which we guys have been talking about, PVA, and Power BI as well. So just to understand fully what exactly a connector does, one of the immediate use cases is that it's going to provide a data source. So here we are in Power Apps, and we go to create a blank app. I can scroll through the list of connectors under Add Data. We can go and look for Excel online for business as an example. And from there, we can select it and choose a table to import from, serving as a data source that will be fueling this app. Our next example is that our connectors can be used to execute an automation, a workflow, as a trigger. So here in Power Apps, we can select a trigger. And what is a trigger exactly? A trigger is what we are saying to start the automation as. When something happens, kick off the automation. So in this example, we can say, when a new email arrives, start the automation. That is the trigger for the flow. And the last primary example is to actually execute an action. So now we know when to start it, but what actually are we going to be doing? So again, we can go and search up the Outlook connector as an example, and we can say, once we manually trigger it, we are going to execute the action of forwarding an email. That is the action that the connector is carrying out. We also have a ton of templates as well that you can automatically adopt, just like we were talking about NL to Flow, natural language to Flow, when you describe it to design it. Before that, we had these template scenarios where you can go and say, I want to do some kind of automation with email, for example. Underneath the Outlook connector, you can find a bunch of these templates, which once you go in and just log into your Outlook account, establish your connection, you'll see that there's already a pre-made flow there for you with all of the action cards and all the triggers already made to describe your perfect use case scenario. And obviously, this is not going to be as AI heavy as the NL2 Flow capabilities, but as we are growing those capabilities, we still also have these options for templates to fall back on in case the AI is not perfectly there yet. So we can see that my automation that I described was save an O365 email attachment to my OneDrive, and there the flow is already made. So it's okay, even if you're not like, a pro code, even if you're not super low code and you're new to the platform, we have capabilities to support you. Also, to set the stage, I just want to describe that we have two primary types of connectors, and we can get deeper after that. The first is what we call custom connectors. These connectors are going to be deployed only within your specific environment to fit your business use case scenarios. So these custom connectors are going to show up in your environment, but not necessarily on the list of all of the out-of-the-box connectors available for Power Automate or for Power Apps. It's just your space kind of thing. The ones that do show up on that main list are what we call certified or shared connectors, and they go through this whole process of validation and testing and certification and deployment with my team. I also realized that I did not put my LinkedIn and my Twitter in the chat for you guys to reach out to me. Nick, can you do that? I know you have them. Thank you so much. I don't want to waste any time. So our ecosystem of these shared connectors is really massively growing. We are actually at 976 as of today. We are barreling towards 1,000, hoping to hit it in the next month and a half or so. So we really are what I like to call the most connected cloud. We have so many capabilities that you can integrate to. There's a bunch of benefits as to why you would want to create and certify a connector. Obviously, you can expand the reach of your company or your service's APIs, as well as create your own custom solutions that fit your business needs specifically. You'll be part of our big fancy list of connectors available. You'll get lots of telemetry about how your connector is doing, error messages, how it's being used. You will also get support from my team and I along your process, and you'll also get access to some town halls where you can learn special roadmaps specific to connectors and Power Platform, and you'll also be able to give me and my team feedback directly before we roll things out as now key partners of our platform. What do you like? What do you not like? What do you want to see on our roadmap? You are now a partner with us, not just a customer. You are helping to feed our platform. Because that's something super important about the Connectors team. We are not just a product, we are a platform team that is built foundationally so much on the influence and support and partnership with externals. We would not be the strength that we are without our alliances with so many other companies and ISVs. Speaking of ISVs, there's a question always comes up, and I actually have a town hall plan to talk about it with our existing connector publishers next month. There's always the question of, Jocelyn, my connector is being deployed as a premium connector and blah, 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 so much about Power Automate licenses and things are expensive. And if I have users that want to use my connector but are new to the Power Platform, how do I get them to actually buy the license? Why want mine to not require a fancy license? We have a solution for that. It's called the ISV Embed program. Super new. I think it just hit public preview this fall. How this program works is we actually will embed an iframe of Power Automate into your services UI. So, hi, participant. Hi, participant. Okay. So I'll go with the example.
It's not just me.
No, I can hear it. We'll go with the example of DocuSign because they are one of our marquee participants of this program. Say I am DocuSign and I have users that want to use the DocuSign connector, but it is premium. What I will do is on my DocuSign website, I will embed an iframe of Power Automate. So before my users can even get into that iframe, they have to sign in with their DocuSign credentials. Everyone who goes and signs in with their DocuSign credentials, DocuSign will pay for the licensing requirements for them directly to Microsoft. So they will not need a fancy license to create a flow with the premium DocuSign connector, nor any other premium connector within that flow. So we can talk for hours about this program, but just from a high level, this is one way for partners to get rid of any licensing requirements for the premium connectors that they have certified. I know I'm going really fast, but I want to get to fancy demos. Put questions in chat. Is that okay? Am I making sense so far for everyone?
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, stop.
Oh.
Demo time. So we're going to start off first with making a connector right now. 5 minutes. We're going to make a connector. Let's get to it. We're going to start off by making a Yelp connector. It is not very difficult. First, we are going to go to Yelp's development tools website, and we're going to find the API URL. From here, we're going to pop back into Power Automate and go to the tab that says Custom Connector, and we're going to say we're going to create a custom connector from blank. Pretty simple. From here, we're going to name it. I used this demo actually initially at a conference that was held in Times Square, so you're going to notice some Manhattan themed things going on here. We're going to name it. I named it Yelp Bootcamp Demo, and we're going to give it a description. Does not have to be much because right now this is going to be a custom connector for now, just deployed within my own environment, so it doesn't have to be the prettiest. The host is the API website. Fantastic. Next step. We're going to go now into our security, our authentication. Our authentication type is the API key that we're going to get from Yelp's DevTools. We're just going to go and create a Yelp DevTools account, and they're going to give us our own specific API key. Fantastic. Not too hard. Nothing pro dev going on here. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to define our actions because, you know, connectors can have triggers or connectors can have actions. This one's going to do something. It's going to execute something for me. So let's configure our action. We're going to go and click New Action. We're going to say we want it to search for businesses. We're going to give it an ID name, just something simple like search. From here, we're going to say we want it to get something that is actually what we are importing. And look at that. We actually already have the code for that and the URL for that given, again, with Yelp's DevTools. So where are we getting it from? We're going to be getting it from that API URL. We're going to make sure the required fields are marked as required. So what do we have to search? We're going to go and say we need to get a term. What are we searching for? Is it a restaurant? Is it an arcade? And we're going to make sure that it's also required for a location. Not searching for a restaurant in the whole world. We're just going to search for one city, one town, one region. Got to narrow it down. From here, we're able to go and take our designated response. So what is it going to be returning? Again, Yelp actually gives us this information. What kind of response body are we looking for? We already have that. The response is going to include things like the location, like the rating, and what the actual business is called. We're going to load that up, and it's going to be ready to go pretty much. From here, we now have to go and make sure that we're going to test it. Is it going to work? So we're going to go and create a connection, establish that connection between our API key specific to ours, which we can find right there. Some people will say I shouldn't have shown that because now you guys can go and use my Yelp account, but it's fine. Use my Yelp account. Make sure you include the word bearer before you actually type in the API. Something super important that throws a lot of people off. It's the API authentication type, bearer. We're going to go and refresh to make sure our connection is indeed established. And there it is. We have a connection. We're going to now test the operation. So the term I want to search for is restaurants, and I want to search in Manhattan. Awesome. Let's click test the operation, and let's see if it gives us a response in the designated type. There it is, exactly in the body response that we expected. It's listing a breakfast and brunch place. It's giving me the coordinates to it, really, really specific, longitude and latitude, but we got where it is. For the next step of wow, let's go ahead and go to the next slide first and create an app. Let's see it in an app form, right? So from here, we're just going to go blank app. And I know somebody was like, I want to see cool things with Power Apps. Blank app, Yelp demo. And it'll be a tiny bit laggy. We're going to go and create that app. And it's just going to be blank for now. We're going to get it up, getting things ready. And skip. The next thing we need to do is now we are using this as a data source. We are pulling in from Yelp's data source. We're going to make sure we have that established connection. And there is our custom connector that we just made. And that little green icon shows that this is a custom connector within our own environment. How are we doing on time? So far, so good. We're going to now go and configure our inputs and outputs, meaning what are we going to type into the Power App for us to give us back something. So text input and a little button, and the button's going to execute a search. So we're going to make sure that we configure the button to actually return us back those results. Awesome. We're going to go and input a gallery. That's where our results are going to come in from, and make sure that we attach those and configure those to our connector, which is going to be serving as the data source here. While the connector is serving as a data source to fill out that gallery with results, it is also secretly running a flow in the background to actually execute that action of getting a result. Connectors in Power Apps can work in two ways, as an action and as a data source. As a data source, it's just pulling directly, and if it ever has to execute an actual action, it's actually secretly running a behind-the-scenes flow. Kind of something interesting. We're going to go and say we want this little part of the gallery to give us an image of whatever place we're going to search up. We want it to go ahead and give us a rating and the title of it, something like that. And from here, let's try the app. Nothing super fancy. We're going to click F5, and we're going to struggle to write the word restaurant. Then we're going to successfully write the word restaurant and search. And there are some restaurants near Times Square. You got a Mediterranean place, and you see it has 4.5 stars. There it was, start to finish, just a few minutes. We have a custom connector working, and we have a use case scenario with an app. All right, so was that cool?
Yes, yes.
But can it get cooler? Of course it can. Let's now watch a cooler demo. It also has an app in it. Here we have another app. And again, we're going to search for restaurants near Times Square. Give me some data on that. What do we have? All right, we got Olive Garden, we got TGI Fridays. See, when I was growing up, I celebrated my good report cards going to Olive Garden as a child, but let's say I didn't know what Olive Garden was. Give me a little bit of a description on Olive Garden, okay? It's an Italian-American restaurant chain, got it. It's known for its breadsticks, very important. I saw this hot take that their breadsticks was actually just a generic brand with some garlic seasoning on it last night. I don't know, it was kind of controversial. Let's say I'm vegetarian and I want to get a sub list of vegetarian entrees served at that restaurant to see what options there are for me. Give me like 4 options. Okay, there's some ziti, there's some eggplant parmesan. I got it. There's something here that I would like that fits my dietary restrictions. Good to know. Let's say now I think I've decided I actually do want to go to Olive Garden, but I also want to know, are there good appetizers that fit my dietary restrictions as well? Let's see. Vegetarian appetizers served at Olive Garden. Bruschetta. I love bruschetta. I grew up growing my own tomatoes. But again, let's say that I wasn't familiar with what bruschetta was. Can you give me a little bit of a description on that? It's an appetizer with slices of toast and garlic and olive oil, as well as minestrone soup. You don't necessarily know what ingredients are going on in there. Awesome. Can you give me a little bit of a picture or something, just so I can eat with my eyes first? You know, the camera always has to eat before you eat. There's a little bit of a picture of bruschetta. Awesome. That's great to know. Can I have some ingredients in case I have some allergy or something like that? And give me a long list of ingredients, say the top 7 things used there. Okay. Perfect. Great to know. Oh, here's something. I didn't necessarily expect there to be kidney beans or green beans in minestrone soup. This is great information to know before I go to a place that I don't know very well. Awesome. So from here, what's my next decision, right? So I think from here, I've decided, yeah, I do want to go to Olive Garden. But let's say I want to go to a different location than just the Times Square one. What other locations are there? I see there's one in the Upper East Side. I see there's one in Midtown. But let's say I didn't grow up in New York and I don't actually know what these areas are like. What are these neighborhoods like? Again, we can get a description of that. I'm going to go to the next slide. Actually, no, I want to show this. This part I thought was super duper awesome. Give me parking options in this neighborhood. If you guys are familiar with Manhattan, you always have to figure out the cost benefit. Am I going to take public transportation or am I going to drive? Because if you drive, you have to deal with parking. Give me the specific parking options here. It's always something you got to weigh. There's valet parking at the Times Square Olive Garden. How fancy is that? From here, let's say I want to stay the weekend in New York, right? Like I want to find out what are some things to do. Did my video pause? There we go. Give me some things to do in Manhattan. Let's say I stay the weekend. Visit the Empire State Building. Again, we asked for a description if we want to know what it's going to be like. And again, I thought this part was pretty cool as well. We're going to search for, after getting a sublist of parking locations, we're looking for a thing to do. It is returning a verb, an activity, something like visit the Empire State Building, but we're still able to parse for a place to eat near the verb of visit. The contextual clues here are incredible. It's giving me places and locations of parking and places and locations to eat next to a verb. So the conversational nature of this is incredible. Again, we can ask for an image of it. And it's going to give me specifically an image of a trail in Central Park. None of that overhead zoomed out helicopter footage, an actual picture of walking, your experience walking through Central Park. And actually, you guys are going to guess, obviously, that this is an OpenAI demo. Of course, it's an OpenAI demo. But the first time I presented this, I gave no context to that whatsoever. It was a really drastic switch. So it's around this point that people start to realize what's actually going on here. Because I'm like, we're going to live edit the app. Give me specifically not just an image of what I'm going to be doing this weekend, but let's go and say, and of course we're going to do the super cliche Dolly thing of like while it's cloudy outside. So in case it's going to be bad weather that weekend, right? Like while it's cloudy. So it'll give me back the Empire State Building in clouds. It's going to give me back a cloudy walk through Central Park. And then from there, boom, there are the clouds. Cloudy day. And again, while you're actually walking. And the next thing I go and change then, and at this point, people have obviously really caught on. We're going to do something cliche, like give me it as a watercolor, right? Give me it as a watercolor while it's raining and everybody's like, oh my God, this is Dolly. How cool is that, right? Let's skip. And we're going to regenerate the image and boom, rainy watercolor. Ta-da! That is my demo, but I want to bring this back. Really cool. Thank you. I want to bring this back to like, what is the action item? What can we do from here? So what, Jocelyn? So yeah, that was cool. How did we make this happen is the original question. So I like to introduce everybody to this guy. This guy is named Robin. You guys should follow him. He's also a tech YouTuber. He works as a digital catalyst for an energy company. And he is a tech YouTuber, and he's also a mechanical engineer like me, and he's also a dad. And what the hell does this have to do with anything, right? Like, why are you telling me this, Jocelyn? The most important thing is that he is what we call an independent publisher of a Power Platform connector. So we talked a lot about how you can go and create a connector. We saw now how you can, but then we have the ability to certify it so it is available for everyone, just like I can use, just like he can use with the connector that he made and helped me with this demo as well. We have multiple types of connectors. The first one, obviously, are ones that Microsoft own and we built ourselves. And a couple of those include some connectors that are not Microsoft named, but we just made them the very, very early days of our platform because they were widely sought after. Then we have what we call verified publishers, which are connectors made by Exactly, by Nick. We have publishers who made connectors leveraging their own enterprise API. So we have Nick's connectors. We also have Adobe, DocuSign, SurveyMonkey, Autodesk, leveraging their own proprietary APIs to publish connectors. And the last thing we have is what we call independent publisher connectors. So these are connectors made by MVPs, community members, citizen devs, and anyone else who leverage open source APIs to publish these connectors. So it's not APIs that they own, they're APIs that are available, just like the Yelp one that we showed. And that is exactly the case with this OpenAI connector. It was just open source and Robin executed on it. And now it's available for all of us to use. So that is the power, honestly, behind Power Platform. Power Platform would not be powerful without the power of connectors, and connectors would not be powerful without the contributions from all of our many, many partners. So what is the action item here?
Jocelyn, real quick.
Yes.
Oh no. Troy is on the call, so
Troy is on the call.
Who is one of the is he the biggest contributor of connectors?
He is the biggest contributor of connectors with regards to connector count. And I also know that Troy has been collaborating with Robin as well on an update to the OpenAI connector. So expect that demo to iterate and get even cooler than it already was.
Yeah, ChatGPT 4 is coming. That's what I like to say. So
awesome. That was the majority of my spiel. I talk a little bit about how you can certify your connector, but there's a bazillion YouTube videos that I've made about that process. But if you just want to know how to you get involved, the first step would just be visiting our GitHub, where you can go and submit your first PR, get started on creating your first custom connector. Now that we've walked through how simple it can be to do, and there's a bunch of connectors that we don't have still. Like everybody would be like, oh my god, Jocelyn, there's 976. Do you need any more? Yes, we do. There's a list of connector requests that we have not touched on yet. So that can be yours. I shall pause there. Yes, and I actually think this is a great time to hand it back over to James, because now you saw the capabilities of an OpenAI connector, and now show us the capabilities of built-in AI Builder OpenAI.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me. Feel free to reach out to me, and it was a pleasure to meet you guys. Bye-bye, everyone. I'll stay in the chat. Feel free to leave me more questions, and I'll answer them like sporadically. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Thanks, Jocelyn.
Bye-bye.
You better have breadsticks with you, Jamie.
I know. That's the last thing I So thanks for that. Okay. So just wanted to check real quick. Thoughts, questions anybody has in the chat, or any hands up or anything like that? I think we got a few minutes. I was going to talk a little bit more about OpenAI and where we're going with that from our platform.
Sounds good. I just had really one quick question.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the last thing you did with grabbing that knowledge base article. So does that actually count on the knowledge base article in CE that you've used that, attached it, sent it? Because you know how it has the statistics on the knowledge base articles?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
So in the customer service app, traditionally, when we select a knowledge base article and we decide to send that article to the customer, that's captured in the statistics. When Copilot goes and grabs the contents of that article to formulate a response to the customer, I don't know if that's hitting the statistics or not. That's a great question. So I don't know the answer to that. I'll find out. That's a really good question. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody?
You can put your questions in the chat or come off mute too if you're joining us virtually.
So in Power Platform, when we want to use OpenAI, So Azure OpenAI includes a set of APIs that you can choose to expose within your tenant. And those APIs are generally going to be used more by our pro devs, maybe our data scientists, so on and so forth. So the question becomes, how do we get our hands on that stuff from a Power Platform perspective? So there's a couple different ways. One is we could create a custom connector, similar to what Jocelyn was just mentioning. And so we could surface those APIs through a custom connector. However, a scenario that's a little bit more accessible to our Power Platform folks is the use of AI Builder. So if you haven't used AI Builder or explored AI Builder yet, I highly encourage you to do that. So then you say, well, yeah, but then I have to pay for it. So how do I do that? Oh, but wait. If you go to in the Maker portal and you click on the environment tab, you'll see a button here, unless your IT folks have shut this off. We recently rolled out, recently meaning January, February timeframe, we recently rolled out an expansion of the concept of developer environments. We've had developer plans for a little while, and the idea behind those plans has always been to use them for training, for learning, maybe for prototyping, for skill building. They don't require licensing. They don't eat into your licenses. They don't eat into your data capacity that you're paying for, so on and so forth. So you can kind of think of them as a free environment where you can go and learn and prototype and so on and so forth. What we expanded on that earlier this year is, number one, an individual user now can create up to 3 developer environments. Because what we're trying to do is encourage people to have developer environments where they can learn, they can prototype, they can do those types of things. They can share those applications and those developer environments with other users. Now, there's a limitation to the data storage in those developer environments. You only get up to 2 gigabytes. So you only get up to 2 gigabytes of data in those developer environments. And so it's not something you're going to use and try to use that for enterprise-wide applications, right? But it's a place where you can have a group of people work on an application or a couple of applications and truly use that as a development environment that doesn't eat into your licensing, and then be able to migrate your application or your solution from that developer environment to a production environment. So we've expanded the use of developer environments. You can spin up your own development environment and have access to an AI Builder trial and so on and so forth, to be able to explore some of this stuff. Now, I mentioned AI Builder, and why is that important? Because in AI Builder, we have a whole bunch of pre-built models. So much like Power Platform, the Power Platform tools are meant to expose existing Azure cloud services to folks who are not developers. So when we think about things like Power Automate, for example, when you create a Power Automate flow under the covers, you're actually creating an Azure Logic app. You just don't see that. You don't see it that way. The tool set is more conducive to folks who are not developers. AI Builder is kind of the same way. We're exposing existing cognitive services from the Azure cloud platform through these AI Builder models. And some of them are pre-built models. Some of them are models that you can train with your own data. So for example, object recognition, for example, I can take a bunch of pictures of, say, my own products, and I can train the model to recognize my products in pictures. Now I can go take an application and take a picture of a shelf in a store. Or we actually did an example of this with a shoe store chain. And the idea there was, if I take a picture of the shoe on the shelf, it can go and look up inventory and so on and so forth, right? That object recognition capability, train it with your data. Now I have that available to me in AI Builder. One of the things that we have coming in preview, you won't see this in your world just yet. I had to sell one of my children to get engineering to turn this on for me. And that's okay. But the AI builder, the GPT model is being exposed through AI builder now, so that we can go and access those OpenAI APIs that I mentioned in a simpler way. So in my model, I can do things like summarize text, for example, or extract information. So that's where we're extracting like keywords and those types of things out of text, so on and so forth. If I want to just summarize text, I can put in here, I'm going to just drop in some text from that call transcript that we were talking about in Viva Sales earlier. I'm just grabbing that whole transcript. Give it to this guy, test it out. Let's see what comes back with for a summary. And so here it comes back, right? Paul Robinson and customer discussing the Excel coffee machines, blah, 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 blah. So what the AI builder model is giving us, this is slightly different than that concept of a connector, but you could kind of think about it the same way. It's giving us access to those underlying APIs that are exposed for Azure OpenAI. Azure OpenAI. So the way that we would typically interact with Azure OpenAI is through these APIs that are exposed. We're taking that a whole nother level of abstraction further when we expose this stuff in AI Builder. So you can play with the different kinds of APIs, the different kinds of capabilities that are part of that model. So what does that look like? Well, I can do some of this stuff in a flow, for example. So again, just trying to keep things real simple. And I do this a lot. If you're relatively new to Power Automate, I highly, highly encourage you to do things with the button trigger, because it's a way to test out your business logic. And I can test and retest these flows as many times as I want to without having to go update data in an application or send myself an email or whatever other triggers that I want to use. So I just created this thing to manually trigger a flow, and I'm taking an input. I just want text as an input. And then here is where I'm using the AI builder model. Where did that come from? I add an action. Here's my AI builder connector. And here's all the different models that are exposed. Now, these are models that are pre-built models. If I train my own model, I will see something here called predict. And when I select predict, it'll allow me to select my own model that I've trained with my own data. So that's kind of that object recognition scenario that I talked about earlier. But so that's where the GPT thing came from that I'm using here. And I'm basically saying, hey, for GPT, I just want to create text. I want a summary. And I'm going to take the input from my manual trigger. So when we go and test this out, this is pretty simple. It's just going to give me a prompt for data. I'm just going to paste in the same data, same transcript, run the flow, and we'll get some things and stuff back.
We've got a question in the chat for you. If you want to get. All right. It says, Jamie, I've been told the AI builder licensing would be getting better to help people choose the right tool, not just the cheaper tool when comparing cognitive services of the AI builder. Do you know when the new licensing will be public?
I do not. Sorry. I would like to say that it'll be that will be publicly available after the launch of Wave 1, which I think is like April 4th timeframe. I forget what date the launch event is. So I'd like to say that new licensing will be available then, but I have not heard for sure. So I gave it that transcript, and the output from my AI builder action is shown here. And that's where we're getting the summary back, right? Paul Robinson and customer are discussing Excel coffee machines, blah, 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 right? We can see that whole transaction here. Right, here's our text that comes back. So now I can take that text, I can go do something with that. Why is that important? Okay, so let's start thinking about what Viva Sales does. Right, in Viva Sales, we said, okay, I have an email from a customer, and maybe that email was a back and forth email thread. So there's a lot of history that's involved in that message. Viva Sales, using GPT, is using that whole history to create that reply for us. So it's going to include some of the details from that history. Plus, Viva Sales is built to go out to our CRM system and pull back relevant information for that customer as well. So we're kind of blending those two sources together when we go and generate that email. Going to the AI model, the AI builder model, going to the GPT connector that's available to you enables us to create our own processes that take text or take data from some system like the example that Jocelyn was showing to say, hey, you know, the Empire State Building, I'm trying to remember the whole scenario she had with the pictures, but being able to take that descriptive information and in my application, go throw it out to Azure OpenAI and get that result back. This is where we start building in the custom capabilities that we need in our own applications and processes. So what does that look like? Well, I might want to have a process that says, hey, you know, in this case, I'm going to take a file. So I might trigger this process off of a SharePoint folder or a OneDrive folder. A new document comes in from a customer. I drop it into that folder. It triggers this process. I'm going to take that document. Let's say it's a PDF document. I'm going to say, hey, AI Builder, go get me all the text out of that document. That's one thing. And then package up all that text and let's throw that out to our GPT AI Builder again. And so we're able to take those custom data sources, those custom text sources and images and so on and so forth, and be able to throw that stuff out to GPT to get summarization and those types of things. I could take, we already have a model, for example, that will extract text from an image. So if I get an image, if I have a scenario where I'm getting an image and I'm already extracting that text from the image, now throw that to GPT to summarize it. Now I'm starting to summarize alt text for my images when I'm going to drop them into a marketing proposal, whatever we're going to do with it. Thoughts, questions, mind blown?
Yeah.
I see Nick with the furrowed brow. He's thinking really hard, and I'm really interested.
Yeah, can you change that into JSON output? So instead of summarizing text, it just says, you know, provide a JSON output summary, and then you could use that to generate your own. Yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
So the answer, the short answer is yes.
Yeah, that's really incredible.
So now we can start to think about things like, I get a JSON response from some REST endpoint. Let me throw it to GPT and get the text summarization back that I'm actually going to present to the end user.
No, the other way. You take your chat summary, you turn it into JSON with, you know, key action points, and you feed that into something else. And now you have a conversation.
Feed that back to the REST endpoint. Yeah, I got you.
Right. So now you can use this to create summary follow-up emails automatically. So when a meeting's done, you're sending thank yous with summary that you don't even think about.
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
A couple of, I don't know if these are technical points or not. I think of them as technical points. When we think about Azure OpenAI and this GPT model, and the dolly model, and so on and so forth, the things that you've been hearing, all the buzzwords. Those are public, they are public models that OpenAI has trained with tons and tons of publicly accessible data over a period of time. The training, the support for the models, the hardware that stuff runs on is all Azure. But those are models that are publicly available. In my example, when I took that transcript and threw it at the model and got a summarization back, is the model doing anything to retain the data that I sent it? No, right? The data, your data is still your data. It's not being used to train the model, retrain the model, anything like that. That's not happening. Those models are trained on so much data, it takes so much time to actually train that they don't get retrained on any kind of a regular basis. Now, one of the things that you can do is create what we call a fine-tuning model. So you have the ability in your own tenant to create what we call a fine-tuning model with your data that stays within your tenant, is secured within your Azure infrastructure, and be able to combine that trained model with the larger public GPT model, for example. So your fine-tuning model becomes I'll say a prompt for the broader GPT model. So now I can start to do things around my product information, terminology in my industry, my customer information, those types of things, and have a model that's trained with my data that can help with the prompting of the GPT model.
You guys all went techie. I was putting in the chat. This is just, I'm thinking about it from project management, right? As a partner, I need to respond to RFPs and RFIs, which I just hate to do.
I'm with you.
So if I have enough data where I can upload my RFP responses with my estimates, with the requirements, I can just tell this model to just go create an RFP response for me. It'll get me halfway there.
Yep.
Save me hours and hours and hours.
Yep.
That's so cool. From a practical partner application.
No, but I mean, it is a great example of the kinds of problems, the kinds of productivity problems that we're trying to solve for, right? I have yet to meet a customer that has enough people in their organization to accomplish all the work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be able to be more productive, and this is going to be huge. It's going to change a lot I would say, over the next 5 years. We're going to see a lot of changes because it's really just at the infancy. And for most of us, the people that work on this stuff, they're already sort of looking toward the future. For the rest of us mortals, we're kind of like, oh, holy crap, what are we doing, right? And so the wheels start to spin. So this is going to change a lot over the years. But what a huge productivity gain.
Yeah.
I know it would replace like the follow-up emails after meetings. That was
Yeah.
so exciting. I spend way too much time on that.
Now, the key thing is, go back to, what I said initially, like where I get blocked, where I lose time is just trying to get started in creating that email. If GPT can create the email for me so that I'm just reviewing it, reading it, tweaking it, and saying, oh yeah, there's another point I wanted to make in there. That's where it's really saving me time, right? We're not using GPT to do the work. We're using GPT to get the work started, if that makes sense.
And to kind of step back for a moment, for people that aren't really in the know of where ChatGPT is in this entire platform, can we just run through all of the areas that have Copilot? It's BC, it's Dynamics for Sales, Dynamics for Service, Dynamics for Marketing, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents.
Think about it as every Microsoft end user product
Is it an
is
F&O?
going to include Copilot.
He's going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it hasn't rolled out yet, right? So I'm talking about M365 as well. We actually just announced Copilot capabilities in Purview, right? So now, I mean, even at the infrastructure and administration level, those Copilot capabilities are going to be baked in, right? So I can go into PowerPoint and tell Copilot to build me a slide with things and stuff, and it can pull that from with images and styling and so on and so forth.
Interesting. I feel like we need to have like an ethical conversation about all of this too.
There
Right?
absolutely
Like
is.
this is going to take away so many jobs.
No,
Oh,
it's not.
Be
What
purposeful.
it's going to do is change jobs.
right.
Here's the thing. Like I said earlier, I've yet to work with a customer that has enough people to do all the work.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to get more as individuals out of the work that we're doing and remove the tedious nature of the work that we do so that we can focus on things that are more productive, more creative, right?
Yeah.
That's really the goal.
If I have that much power, why would I be an employee and not just go to my own?
You're a consultant, right? So you are doing it on your own, right? The service that you provide as a worker is, I'll just generically say, building applications, because that's what you know how to do. You know how to interpret business problems, design a solution, and build an application to solve that problem.
Yep.
And so you sell your skills to lots of companies.
Right.
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 Artists do that. Marketing folks do that. All kinds of different skill sets do that. There are a lot of people, though, that want the I'll say the stability, the safety net of being an employee.
Why are they going to still be employees? Sorry, I'm
But
asking.
no, you're absolutely
gorilla
right.
thing.
But the point here is everyone has a different perspective
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
that question and their future and their situation and so on and so forth, right? So it just creates lots of different ways for everyone to participate in that process.
Kylie just put a link to a responsible AI discussion. Are there areas where I shouldn't use Copilot or AI capabilities because it could result in safety issues, fairness, etc., or should I use it for the same reason? Fascinating.
I don't think there's any one right answer to that. The only answer to that is keep in mind that Copilot is not doing the work for you. Copilot is providing a potential response that you to make sure that it's correct or it is worded properly or it is responsible, right? I certainly wouldn't trust AI to make medical decisions for me, but I would trust it to provide information to my physician who can interpret that information, right? And that's, again, in healthcare, that's a place where we're seeing a lot of AI capabilities. Just think about physician burnout, caregiver burnout, huge issue. A lot of people are leaving nursing, especially during pandemic when there were so many people that were sick and nurses couldn't. One of my neighbors is a nurse. She wouldn't even leave the hospital for like 30 hours. That whole thing is real. And so if AI can bring information together and give the caregiver a picture of what they need to know, rather than having them bounce around and have to do all this decision making, now we're reducing the cognitive load on the end user so that they can be focused on what it is that they're best at. And that's really, I think that's really the piece that we need to stay focused on. Is it going to be right? Is it going to be 100%? Are we there? No, we're not, right? That's why it requires a lot of input. It requires a lot of discussion because we do want to make sure it's right. That's the philosophical side of this thing. I'll stop now.
No, that's
And
really
I highly recommend anyone in the room or virtual pay attention to the chat. People are throwing awesome links into this, so you can check it out later.
Excellent. Any other thoughts, questions? We're kind of like
We're kind of at the end of our meeting too.
bumping up time, so
This was awesome.
you know how I could do this all day.
Yeah,
I do.
really
this all day.
easy.
Does anyone have any final questions for Jamie? Mike Ox says, tell Jamie hi.
Hey, Mike, how are you, buddy? Thank you for everybody that joined on the call, and it's nice to see a handful of people here. Next time, let's get more people here. I'm talking to everybody on the call.
If we get more people here, we might get to go to one of the cool rooms,
There you go.
which we're gonna go have a tour of. So don't you wish you were here in person.
That's
We're
the
gonna
way.
see all the cool stuff now.
See, it used to be,
And we have the coffee.
I used to have to entice people to sit in the front row by putting candy on the front row. So the way to entice people to come in for the meeting is by offering a tour. That's what we'll do.
Kylie says, hey, say hi to Kermit. Kylie, they totally changed it. I don't even know what it looks like. Jamie said it's not even the same anymore.
We do, Kermit is still here though.
Okay.
We have Kermit sitting in our retail space downstairs. He's sitting on a shelf, hanging
Awesome.
out. Says hi to everybody.
So stay tuned. I will tweet pictures of these super awesome secret areas we're gonna go check out, and then come join us next time on June, what did I say, 9th? Early June, first Friday of June, we'll be back here. The 9th couldn't be the first Friday of June. It's Friday, guys.
Kylie, I remember the monkey and Kermit. We put them together for a
Hashtag.
picture. I totally forgot. That's awesome.
That's cute. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will catch you next quarter.
Thank you. TV.
Turning us off now. Tour time.